Hello everybody, we are back. Let's talk today about classes. Okay, so... Oh no! I'm forgetting about things. So we were talking in the last episode that we are going to make a character with this. Hopefully you chose a race for your character in the last episode. I forgot to mention that. Next we'll be choosing a class. What a class is essentially like a profession. It's something that is your character's skill set. So, one person might be more magical in nature, while another person might be more of a fighter in nature. Be better with martial weapons and combat and that sort of thing. Pathfinder has a variety of classes to choose from, and even more on top of that. Right now they have 19 classes to choose from, and they're going to have another 10 coming on the way in an upcoming book. This is being recorded in late June. I'm believing in August they're releasing a book called The Advanced Class Guide, and that's going to include 10 more classes, so we're about to get a lot more options. For the purposes of this video, I'm just going to talk about the 11 core classes they're called. These aren't necessarily the most common or the most elementary of the classes. They're just some ones to start out with for making your game the most straightforward possible. There are plenty more, and we'll discuss those later, but for now I'm just going to describe the first 11. Okay, so the first class we're going to talk about is the Barbarian. Barbarians are very tribal, very out in the wild. They don't like to be in civilization a lot of the time, and their traits are more tapping into their anger and channeling that through the swing of a sword. Bards are extremely versatile. They specialize in a lot of performances and a lot of different skills, and they are able to use magic in a certain capacity through their innately magical performances. Clerics are the most famous healers, although they're a lot more versatile than that. They worship gods and take their commands and their goals and enact them in the universe that they're in. Druids are users of the natural world. They revere nature in all of its forms, and they will take nature and use it against those who wish to inflict harm on nature and bring things out of balance. Balance is a huge thing in their philosophy. Next we have a fighter who uses years and years of training to perfect martial combat. We also have monks, who are somewhat mystical in their beliefs most of the time, and use that mysticism with an ideal of self-perfection and work to achieve a perfection of their own bodies rather than using either magic or weapons to defeat their enemies. A paladin in some other tales is also called the Knight in Shining Armor. He upholds very strict codes, and he uses the tenets of that code to enact good in the world. Next we have rangers, who are often ranged fighters, but not necessarily. Their main theme is that they pick particular targets and get very good at hunting that particular target. Maybe they're particularly good at hunting down humans. Maybe they're particularly good at hunting down animals or undead. It all ranges from ranger to ranger. A rogue can encompass many, many different ideas. They're very good at sneaking up on their enemies or outwitting them and striking where they least expect themselves to be struck. Sorcerers are people who have been affected by magical bloodlines, and by bloodlines I mean they are descended from or affected by certain influences. Maybe one's affected by a dragon, maybe another's affected by an angelic bloodline, but they use that bloodline to enact powerful magic upon the world. Wizards, on the other hand, are very studied. They don't have the innate magical ability that sorcerers do. So instead of using their force of will to create magic, they instead study certain secrets and spells to perform powerful magical effects. Now, we have all of these options, but what Pathfinder's also done is created something called an archetype. An archetype takes one of these core concepts and modifies the original idea for the class in a way that maybe fits your vision a little bit better, or makes your class a little bit more focused or a little bit more interesting, and I like them quite a bit, just so you know. Okay, so each of these classes is going to... We talked about leveling before. Each class has 20 levels, and as you go up each level in a class, you're going to gain more abilities in that class. Now, you can also do something called multi-classing. What that means is, say you have a level 1 fighter that you start off with, and it comes time to start leveling up. You could either take a level, it's called, in fighter, and then become a second level fighter. You would be like a fighter, except a better fighter. But what you could also do is, say, have that first level in fighter, but also have a level in wizard, and gain all the abilities of a wizard, and mix it with the powers of a fighter. So now, instead of just being very good at armor and weapons, you could also be very good at armor and weapons, and have a basic training in magic. And then you're more versatile. However, you won't gain the new abilities of becoming a better fighter, which can be one of the disadvantages to multi-classing. On the other hand, there are certain classes called prestige classes. You're never going to start off being a prestige class. What a prestige class is intended to be there for is for characters who want to specialize in, say, taking on the methods of a certain faction or a certain group of people. And this particular idea could apply to many different people who are seeking to become this members of this group. So let's take a prestige class called the Lore Master. The Lore Master, at its root, he is a discoverer of secrets. Now, that seems very obvious for wizards who love to study secrets, but it also seems possible for, say, clerics who worship a god whose entire portfolio is about uncovering other people's secrets and using them against them. On the other hand, separate from that, you could also have a bard who is just sort of taking everything in, and he's learning a bunch of secrets along the way and wants to know more and more and more and more and more. He could become a lore master as well. Prestige classes aren't restricted to any other classes, and if you want to take a level in a prestige class, you have to meet certain requirements. So, say for the lore master, you have to be able to manipulate magic to a certain degree, and you have to know a lot about two particular subjects, and you have to be able to cast spells in some sort of fashion. Now, those concepts can be applied through the avenue of many different sorts of classes, and thus many different people can be lore masters, as well as the class they were before. The last thing we need to talk about are favored class bonuses. Why these matter are because if you're taking your favorite class, which is usually your first class. Basically, if you're staying the course, not multi-classing, you can have a small bonus that you can either apply to get more health or get more skilled in a certain thing, or sometimes some other things. But this is a very vague concept and it applies to things we haven't talked about yet, so mostly throw this out of your mind for now, but we are going to talk about this and come back to it later. Alright, that's all in classes for now. I will see you all later.